There's no NIT, Clayton.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in to the Crowded Booth. My name is Bryce Koon. Will Maness will join us just in a second. And, folks, we are 24 hours away from the first game of the college football playoff semifinal. We're down to the final four teams, and we will know by Saturday morning who the two teams, I should say, will be who will play for the national title on January the 20th. The longest college football season in the history of our lovely sport. Only has 3 more games, so we'll be talking about that. Previewing the 2 games. Lock it in. Subscribe to the channel. Like the video. Share it with your friends. Let's talk a little football here on the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. My name is Bryce Koon alongside Will Maness here in January, where Will, I did not know this, but I started to kind of, first off, Matt in the Discord let me know, but I really do believe, and yes, we do have a soliloquy that we have to show in the comments here in just a second, but I did not know, Will, that there's a pending potential snowstorm. Snowmageddon, yes. 2.0, 3.0 in North Georgia. Is it going to touch Columbus? Are they expecting flurries? What is the weather report? Can we get Derek Kincaid on the podcast? I need to know what's happening.
I mean, it's probably just going to be your typical slush-filled winter storm for Columbus. It's like the snow.
That wintry mix that they throw on the Weather Channel, yeah.
Right. It'll be, the snow stops right at about Interstate 80, where it splits into 185. That's where the snow stops, which is typical.
Yeah. No, and look, we grew up in Columbus, and I hated snow. And I'll be honest with you too, because I've never really been anywhere where it's like the fluffy powder. You know what I mean? That people go skiing in Colorado and different places. I've never seen that ever, in my life. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan. My lovely family member, not to be named, asked me, said, "Are y'all expecting it down there?" And I looked around. And I said, "Well, I don't know if you know that we're almost near the equator down here, but no, we will not be getting that.
It snows in Louisiana more than it does in Columbus.
In North Louisiana. Now, Baton Rouge is not going to get it, but obviously, we're one of the greatest bowl games of all time. The Shreveport, what are they now? What's the military? What is it? The Independence Bowl? Is that the Independence Bowl in Shreveport? It is. That's right. So yeah, they've got the. It snows there, but it is cold. I will say that it's very, very cold. All right, here's a nice soliloquy from one of our longtime callers. Sam Lord says, "'Twas the night before the playoffs, and all through the booth, not a creature was stirring, not even a Bruce. The teams were selected by the committee with care in hopes that a champ would soon be crowned." Didn't rhyme right there at the end. I loved the first part. The viewers were listening with their butts in their chairs while memories of the season danced in their head, and Will on his soapbox and Ralph with a bad back have us excited for a long offseason. That's amazing. That's talent.
That is not like the rough draft that I got to enjoy earlier.
Oh, you enjoyed a rough draft. Did you mark that thing up with the red pen for a little bit?
No, I was in full support, but he cleaned it up.
Oh, well, I don't want to know what the original copy.
It was a little bit more of a jab at Ralph.
Oh, well, Well,
Do you want to know the line?
are we rough draft is at El Vaquero?
You want to know the line? It would have
Sure.
been and Ralph learned what Brown can do for you. Here it
Brutal.
is.
Brutal.
There it is.
Brutal. Gavin says it'll snow in Phoenix City, but not Columbus. I don't know. I don't know, dude. I couldn't tell you. Lots to talk about as we get ready for this game. Will we obviously talked on Monday for over an hour, and it's kind of crazy because I kind of feel like during the off season, which we're not quite there yet, but for 131 teams, 130 teams, we're there. Like we are in the off season for them, and so there's a lot of content to talk about. But we kind of need to see what is going to happen over the course of the next 2 to 3 weeks. So, without further ado, let's talk college football playoffs. Well, I'll ask you this: do you? Oh,
Wrong name, Sam. You've already messed up the name.
I don't know who that is. I'm not familiar.
William K. Leary. That's who he's referring to.
Oh yes, that person follows me. So, how do you feel about the playoffs being on a Thursday night and a Friday?
I don't know. I mean, it feels more college football than a Monday night does for sure. But I mean, it makes total sense to do it on a Thursday and a Friday night just because we've got NFL playoffs this weekend, and NFL playoffs would just absolutely stomp ratings wise what the college football playoff would do. So it makes sense. I mean, you kind of got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Obviously, the first game tomorrow night is Ohio State and
Nope.
no,
Penn State, Notre
no,
Dame.
I'm sorry, that's what I'm excited because I'm not going to be able to sit down and watch the Ohio State, the other game, but I will be able to sit down and watch tomorrow night's game, Penn State, Notre Dame. I was talking to my father who hopped on the show, I guess, about 2 months ago, and just was completely thrown aback by the comment section. But I think they even referred to him that he should get back to Fort Benning at some point during that episode. So go check that out. But in all seriousness, Will, Notre Dame opens up this game as a 1-point favorite over Penn State. I kind of want to start with this game. And I know you said you had 4 pages of notes, double space, 1 word per page. I don't know what it is. I went on the radio down here, and someone asked me, like, and I'll just spoil it. Someone said, well, who's the team you feel like you just trust the most right now? And for some reason, it's just Notre Dame. I just don't feel like there's a lot of drama about Notre Dame this season. Obviously, they lost to Northern Illinois, but outside of that one game, they've just really been consistent. And maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid of the Irish, that green Kool-Aid, but I really just like the way that Riley Leonard plays. Like, it's not flashy. I mean, he didn't throw for 100 yards against Georgia, but they just kind of what Georgia did for a couple of years. Like, death by 1,000 cuts. They just keep coming at you. And Leonard plays a brand of football that I think could make him, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, I think Riley Leonard's the best quarterback in this playoff because he's the best fit with his team. That's my take. In terms of what he plays in his role, it's the best. Now, if you just threw the guys out there, all 4 guys out there, totally different.
Yeah.
I think
what you're saying.
His role with that team. Now, Will Howard has looked a lot better recently. I don't know. I just like Riley Leonard. I'm taking Notre Dame to win this game. This is a phenomenal matchup, a fascinating, physical, old school football matchup. But that's just kind of my I guess interlude into this match.
Well, I'll go ahead and make my pick too. I'm with you. I'm taking Notre Dame. To your point about you just trust Penn State or trust Notre Dame more. I agree with you 100%. And that was kind of one of my big points for why I'm picking Notre Dame. We're just kind of sitting around waiting on Penn State to play like they do most of the time when they play big games, right? Yeah. And we saw them perform really well in the first 2 rounds of the playoff. Keep in mind, they're far more talented than SMU and Boise State. As much as we love SMU and as much as we're going to go to bat for them, just facts are facts. Penn State was a more talented team, and they played them at home, and it was a really bad matchup for both SMU and Boise State. That's not the case in this game. and it's not just what you think in the running game.
Mhm.
It's actually a really bad matchup in the passing game for Penn State as well. Here's where my notes come in. Where's Jonesy's not even here, and I'm the most prepared I maybe have ever
Most
been.
prepared.
So Notre Dame's secondary is probably the biggest advantage in this game for them. They have the third best coverage grade against wide receivers, and all these numbers are coming from PFF. PFF had a great write up on this on both games. 90.3 coverage grade, third best in the country against wide receivers. In Penn State, they only target their wide receivers 35.2% of the time, which is lowest in the Power Four.
Mhm.
But when you talk about Penn State, you think about them, that makes a ton of sense because who's their best player on offense? Tyler Warren, their tight end. Mackey Award winner, well deserved. He's the best tight end in the country. Grades out at 93.3 from PFF. Over 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, 655 yards after the catch. The big thing in the receiving game, though, he averages over 77 yards per game. Penn State doesn't have a wide receiver that averages more than 50. So he is the focal point in the passing game. He is who they look for in the passing game. And Notre Dame, they've shut down tight ends. That's been a big part of why their coverage grade is so high. Aiden Schuler is they're lesser talked about safety, less than Watts. But Schuler's the guy that is usually matched up on the tight end one-on-one. I think he'll be on Warren one-on-one a lot. He had an 89.2 coverage grade against tight ends this year. So, I mean, Penn State, if you look at the numbers, it looks like Penn State's going to be in trouble, and Notre Dame's going to be able to really take away everything Penn State does. We saw how good Notre Dame was against the run against Georgia. Going to be the same thing, but Penn State, they love 12 personnel. They run 12 personnel. Maybe I thought I had the number. I don't have the number in front of me. One of the tops in the country at usage of 12 personnel. Notre Dame has not faced hardly any 12 personnel. We'll have to see if Notre Dame can cope with that. Penn State probably just can use a couple tight ends as extra offensive linemen to try to run the ball on them. But I don't see it. I trust Notre Dame more. I think you put Marcus Freeman and James Franklin head to head. I think I'm going to take Marcus Freeman. Just from everything, creativity, the game management. Although we saw the creativity against Georgia, getting that false start late in the game, or the offsides late in the game to keep the ball, keep Georgia from getting the ball and getting back in the game. So I'm going with Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame has the advantage in just about every category over Penn State, but I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. There's a reason why it's a one-point spread. It's going to be a defensive game, I think. And I just have more faith in Notre Dame to score just a few more points than Penn State.
For our friends over at Bet Online, the over-under currently sits at 45 flat. So if you I could see the under hitting here. Like, I just feel like I really could. But, you brought something up that's really interesting, and we talked about this when I did the preview of the Georgia Tech Notre Dame game earlier in the season. We talked about this. Notre Dame defense is the definition of stingy, and they've done it, like you talked about on the back end, without a guy who's probably going to be a top 12 pick in Benjamin Morrison. He hasn't been a part of that, and they lost another defensive back this year. So they're doing it with depth that not a lot of teams have this year. Notre Dame's showing they have depth that's really, really good behind their star-studded defensive backs. And I go back to that Georgia game against in the Sugar Bowl, and I think one of the things, look, if you're watching this or listening to this and you come across this as a Notre Dame fan, you're going to say, well, you should have been paying more attention. And we probably should have. We don't watch a lot of Notre Dame football. But to me, one thing that struck me in that game, Will, was the speed of Notre Dame's defense has grown tremendously from where I think the perception of what SEC fans think Notre Dame is. And I think that was something that was really intriguing to watch because Georgia's got some really good speed and they tracked them down. I think Georgia's speed is better than Penn State's speed. And so I think this is a Fighting Irish team that could have their way. And like you talked about, the matchup is this is what you're good at. Well, we are really good at this too. And now it's going to be, an old school just brawl. And this is one where both teams are going to be bringing each other down into the trenches and saying, this could be a 17-13 ball game. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this
Yep.
could be one of those
I mean,
games where whoever has the ball last kind of wins, but not in a shootout in terms of who can go get
Yeah.
that, who can get to 20. Like, is that fair? Whoever gets to 20 first might win this game.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, it's going to be tough sledding too for Notre Dame. We've talked a lot when we've talked about Notre Dame about how they run the ball. You talked about Riley Leonard as a runner. Notre Dame is top 10 in the country according to PFF and in all your big rushing categories, but when they're facing a top 25 rush defense, which they have not faced week in and week out all year, they only grade out at 54.8 as an offense. Offensive line, quarterback, running back, everybody. So it's going to be tough sledding for sure. But you just feel like Notre Dame is more battle tested, having to go through Georgia, and overcoming that loss to Northern Illinois, where they've been so good and so efficient the rest of the way. It just feels like Notre Dame.
Yeah, and I think too, and you mentioned this with another kind of early point that you talked about, there's a little bit of an imbalance in Penn State's offense. I don't think they've necessarily had to go deep in the well offensively throughout the playoffs too. And you mentioned that idea of being tested. I still, in the back of my head though, Will, I remember that game against Oregon where they torched Oregon's defense. And
Big Ten title game.
The Big Ten title game, and I'm kind of
the best their offense has looked in 5 years.
Yeah, no, it's explosive too. It didn't just look one-dimensional in terms of we're running it or we're throwing it at Tyler Warren, because like you said, Notre Dame's very well equipped to beat that. Like that, I don't think that it's not going to surprise a lot of people if Notre Dame just kind of shuts this down and the final score is 20-13 or 21-10 or 21-14, something like that. I think what would surprise people, and I hope, we're not just trying to dog on Penn State here, is if they would have to do some things. Drew Allar's going to have to take another step. And I just don't know. We just haven't seen it consistently, but now we have a data point. And that Big Ten title game was that data point. If they can somehow do that, I don't know. Now, Oregon's defense over the past 2 games has shown to be a little bit faulty.
Yeah, that's what I was
could be some of the way we didn't know in the regular season. We figured out in the postseason.
Yeah, was the Big Ten title game more about Oregon or more about Penn State's offense? Because they just got blasted by Ohio State.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm taking Notre Dame -1. You're taking Notre Dame -1 too. Are you gonna? You just want to throw that in as we're going under on the 45 points too?
Yeah, I mean, I like the under.
Like, what's a score? You'd have to get to like a 31-24 type of game. Am I right? No,
you would have.
I don't see a team breaking 30 points. You can clip
it'd be 24-21. But being a 1-point spread, so they're saying that this game is going to be 23-22.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think both teams get to 20. I think the winner gets to 20. I don't see both teams scoring in the 20s.
Yeah, no, I like Notre Dame to win this one. I like the physicality. And I think that Marcus Freeman's establishing himself, and we'll have rankings come out here in a couple months, our own viewpoint, one of the best head coaches in college football. Definitely. I don't remember where he was on our list before, but if he wasn't in it, then I think he's got to definitely be in that top 7, at least for me, top 7, top 8, maybe top 5, depending on what Notre Dame finishes out and does. I like how Sam says the score will be familiar to Will. It'll be 3-2. And then
and he says it again. It'll be 3-2.
He just really wants to get that point across. Gavin said, or he also says the battle of the running backs tomorrow. Here's a point we hadn't really talked about yet in this game. How healthy is Abdul Carter? Because it's kind of a game time decision right now for Penn State. This is a guy who, one of the most disruptive, if not the most disruptive defensive player in college football this year. And you look at a guy in Notre Dame's running back, Jeremiah Love. This is not, and no disrespect to who Notre Dame has had in the past, this is not just a big lumbering guy that, rumble ahead, get you 3-4s. Jeremiah Love is big, and he is explosive as a running back. Yep. He's very athletic.
Very dynamic.
Very dynamic. And so if Abdul Carter's not 100%, if this arm injury is truly something that, he can only play, he's on a snap count type of deal, man, I really, really like Notre Dame in this game. I know you laid out a bunch of numbers, but I like Notre Dame in this one. Dr. Bob does say Freeman won't be at Notre Dame much longer, nor be one of the best college coaches. A bigger stage awaits. Would he go to the NFL?
He doesn't. He doesn't. I mean, I don't know. I think just to go on a little coach's tangent here, I don't think we're definitely blurring the line of is this guy a college coach or a pro coach? I think that's where we're at now because college football has become so much like the NFL that it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, we've got Bill Belichick, the greatest NFL head coach of all time, coaching at North Carolina, and I mean, turned down the opportunity to interview for the Raiders job. And you know, all accounts, everything he said, anything that anybody's been told us, he is just eating up recruiting. Like he's having a ton of fun.
And the reports came out today that he might be interested in an NFL job, and then other reports came out that said that he's good. That he told reporters, he's like, I'm enjoying this. And
he told Tom Brady, no thanks.
Yeah, told Tom Brady no thanks, who's got a vested interest now in the Las Vegas Raiders. No, I mean, it'd be interesting, obviously, to kind of see how it happens. But Notre Dame is going to win this one. They're going to advance to the national title game. That's our picks. We think they're going to win it. The first team to get to 20 ends up winning this football game. Well, just one more game on the docket. It's kind of sad, Will. We've entered a point where we don't really get to talk about 3 or 4 games a week, and then we don't get to have a pick, and then we don't get to talk about games to watch. No, it's just strictly 2 games. Little tear. But Ohio State, 5.5-point favorite per Bet Online against Texas. This one is in Jerry's World, which, I'm just going to say this. First off, somebody needs to call the creative media team for Ohio State and tell them to take the cactus off of the graphic, because there's not one single cactus in Dallas, Texas, anywhere near it. There's other things, but that we can't speak about. But there are. Man, it's. Remember, Will, I got a nice scenic
We can talk about ponies.
Dallas.
There's ponies in Dallas.
There's ponies. And they're not from Binghamton. They're not the Rumble ponies, but they are. They're definitely here. Gavin says hook 'em. Sam says Ohio State. Look, he also says first to 40 wins, and Ohio State will hit that in the first half. I'll give Sam $10 if Ohio State scores 40 points in the first half.
You might be out $10.
I'm just going to say this. I mean, I like Ohio State minus 5.5. Will really, I think they're going to win this game. I want to see Ohio State play Notre Dame in the title game because 2 just contrasting styles of play. Mm-hmm. But this game right here, I mean, a lot of people are kind of hating on Texas because it's like, well, they just kind of backdoored their way into the semifinal and all this kind of stuff. But, if you still go off of like pure talent, they've got some really, really good pure talent. They did not run the ball well against Arizona State, and that put way too much on the right arm of Quinn Ewers. And I think at this point we can say Ewers is talented, but you can't win a game just with him. And really and truthfully, there might not be a quarterback in college football that you can win just putting it on his shoulders this year. That's fine. I think it's a big statement we come out of this year saying. If Texas can't run the ball, this is not going to be good, and it's not going to go well. I do think that's
dependent on one player at this point. It's their right tackle, Cameron Williams.
Yeah,
I mean, you watch Texas play. This is an NFL offense. It's all the rave. It's based out of the outside zone, the wide zone. The Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers, Sean McVay of the Rams. That's what this offense is. And Cameron Williams out against Arizona State really, really hurt their running game. It's almost as if Texas can't run the ball inside. They have to run it outside. And if they're going to run inside, the running back cuts inside. I mean, design runs to the middle. It's like Texas hasn't been able to do it.
They haven't been able to do it. And you mentioned they've had some trouble along the offensive line. And look, I mean, I said this in the preseason. I didn't have Texas reaching the Final Four because I just felt like although the weapons were good, they weren't what Texas had last year. And I think that we're seeing it's great weapons. And Gavin talks about Matthew Golden is a dog. Like, he's a very good player. But we weren't having to have a conversation about Texas's skill position guys if they could play themselves into a high draft pick. They were those type of guys. Like, that's just who they had on that roster. So, that's something I'm concerned about. Ohio State's defensive line and defensive front has played very, very well through the first 2. I mean, has wreaked havoc against some teams. I mean, I'll say this, and I know Sam's in here. I think Tennessee's offensive line was about as good can get without being great this year. And it showed against a team that can play great along the front 7. So you go into that game, then obviously you go into who they played last week. And I don't know, like, Oregon got pushed around in that game. I could see this too, but I don't know. I'll flip it over to the defensive side of the football for the Texas defense against the Ohio State offense. Well, I think on one hand, I can sit here and say that Andrew Makuba is a very good football player, and he is a guy that comes down the line playing safety, and he will lay you out.
I've got some numbers on him.
But I don't know how you'd guard Jeremiah Smith and this three-headed monster at receiver. I don't know what you do. It's pick your poison. So I'll tee it up for you here. Your thoughts on that, maybe Makuba and how they could combat this. Can they combat it? What does it look like?
Yeah, well, Texas's secondary, it's the highest graded secondary in the country this year, according to PFF. 92.5 coverage grade, 59.8 passer rating allowed, third in explosive pass rate allowed, only 9.3%. But that's what Ohio State's done in the playoffs. It's been explosive plays. Texas runs a lot of zone, which I think you have to when you're going up against Jeremiah Smith and Meka Ibuga. Too many weapons for Ohio State. You got to run zone. You cannot. They're too good to cover one-on-one. They're going to win, right? I mean, it's what's going to happen. You talk about Makuba. You got to talk about the other safety, Michael Taffy. Both of them have a coverage grade over 85. So does Jahdae Barron, who you would think would be on Jeremiah Smith, but who knows? But I don't know. They run a ton of zone, but it's the playoffs. We've seen teams like Ohio State's done it. We see teams do things differently now that they're in the playoffs. So Texas, they might mix in some man coverage. But I don't know how with how good those receivers are. I don't know how they do that. You're muted.
I'm muted. I didn't know I was muted. I'm sorry. I apologize. That's a hand up situation. I was like, wait, what? You talk a lot about that, and it's a Ohio State defense that's allowing under 2 touchdowns per game right now down the stretch. And man, Texas, when I flip it back to the other side, Texas just struggles with consistency to me in all 3 phases of the game. I mean, Bert Auburn can't feel confident right now. If you can't feel confident in his ability to go and kick a field goal, your defense, while it has, I mean, let's just be real about what Texas is. And yeah, hey, fellas, 2 SEC guys are going to sit here and say this. They feasted on not great teams. And when they have played great teams or a team that has something dominant, they struggle. They struggled against Cam Scatterbo and what Arizona State did and how they kept them off balance. And Ohio State's not just going to keep you off balance. They're going to thrash you with the run game with Trevion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. And then they're going to throw it. And my God, if you let, Jeremiah Smith run around like he did in the Rose Bowl, I mean, it's going to get ugly quick. I'll just tell you right now, I'm taking Ohio State to cover this. Well, I would take them to cover up to 10.5. Like, I think this is a game where they're going to win by double digits. The Buckeyes make another statement. I think that they are a freight train hurtling towards Atlanta right now. And I don't think really, to be honest, this is not a knock on Texas. I don't know who could beat them. And we'll see what happens in the national title game, but I don't know who could beat Ohio State with the way they're playing right now. And I know Ralph has talked about it all year. This is the team that we thought they would be. I wanted to throw this one more stat in here. The Texas offense against the Ohio State defense, Texas ranks 60th in early down EPA, 30th in success rate, and the defense for Ohio State is 3rd and 11th in those respective metrics. So Texas is not great at it offensively, and Ohio State is elite at what they're doing. And one more thing, because you were talking about this, and this is important, about Ohio State's defense. Defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, which I think has been the biggest addition that Ryan Day has made, has moved to a cover 1 heavy scheme. He's brought down Jordan Hancock to play, or he's playing a single high safety in Jordan Hancock. And Caleb Downs can play in a more versatile role.
That's what I was going to talk about. I think you may have it.
Do I have it switched
a little bit? So cover 1, yes, they were running cover 1 a lot during the regular season against the Big Ten, because we know the Big Ten, they're going to run the ball. A lot of those teams are going to run the ball. They just don't have the weapons on the outside, so they have to run the ball. Since the playoffs have started, the 2 games they've played, they've ran a ton of cover 2 high safety, 25.5% rate. They've run cover 2. But to your point, they have positional flexibility back there. Caleb Downs is just
can play close to the line of scrimmage. He can play.
He can do it all. He can do it all as a defensive back. So it provides that flexibility. Now on the flip side, Texas's offense, they've struggled against cover 2 or 2 high safety. 51st offensive grade against cover 2 compared to 5th in the country when they face just a single safety. So that's going to make it tough for Texas. That 2 high safety look, we saw Georgia run a lot of that against them both times they played them. So I'm sure Ohio State's going to run the same thing.
Sam says Will's a part of the weird crowd that wants to ban the 2 high shell. Are you in there with Mel Kiper Jr.? I don't think you are.
When did I say that?
We got a lot of people that say things we don't say. We can talk about all these things, and I think it comes down to it. But another thing that goes into what you just said, Will, is they're going to force Quinn Ewers to make a decision.
Yep.
And when you have a really good defensive front, I won't say elite because I don't know who really is truly elite this year in college football, but Ohio State can be that. If they play ferocious, tenacious defense up front, they're gonna force Ewers to make some quick decisions. And I just go back to the 2 Georgia games where Georgia played. I mean, just pretty much, Glenn Schumann said, "We're just going to blitz the hell out of you and hope you stop it," type of deal. It's probably Coach Boom. Probably Coach Boom on the sideline.
Rumor is it's Coach Boom.
Sources confirmed that it was Coach Boom. But when you have personnel, and look, Ohio State's got some guys that can play what Georgia want to do with Michael Williams on one side, Jalen Walker on the other. When Ohio State wants to do that, I just don't trust Ewers to make the right decision. I'll be honest with you, 75, 80% of the time. And I think that's the difference between Texas being in the national title and not being in the national title.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I agree. We got to talk about Ohio State's run game some more.
Oh,
because it's insane. Chip Kelly has also tweaked up his offense. He has really ramped up the counter run game. Bryce, they've ran 49% of their runs have been counters in the last 2 games, which is it's an insane stat when you find out the national average is only 10%. So nobody runs counter in college football.
And they're not just kind of running it, they're running it half the time.
Right, yeah. And it's Chip Kelly's running it all the time. Texas, they grade out well against the counter, but it's only run 10% of the time. So does that mean anything? I don't think it does. Yeah. I don't think we can base it off how Texas has done against it so far. But whether they're running counter or whether they're running right at them, I don't think it matters because Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson are 2 of the best running backs in the country, and they're in the same backfield. In the playoffs, Ohio State's running game has produced explosive plays 20% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And not just that, Chip Kelly's mixing in play action off these counter looks, and 2 of them have been touchdown passes to Jeremiah Smith. So that's what we're going to see. That's been the game plan. It's been working. I think it's going to continue to work. I'm with you. I would take Ohio State into the double digits if the spread was that big. So you know what that means. If you're watching and listening, you should probably put your money on Texas. But I don't know. I don't know who could beat Ohio State right now. I don't. I mean, Texas, talent-wise, matches up with them, and Mike could do it. But I don't know. It feels like 2 teams going in different directions. Like you said, the talk's been that Texas kind of backed their way into this, which I don't really agree with because Arizona State's still a good football team.
You got to earn your right to be.
They found a way to win.
Yeah.
Texas found a way to win, but Ohio State's just a different animal. I think that's what it comes down to. I don't know how you stop them, and you mix in the defense that they've ran out there the last 2 games, and really that they've ran out there since they played Oregon. Maybe with the exception of the Michigan game, but
yeah,
I don't know how you beat Ohio State.
It's crazy, and kind of going back off your point about the run game. They've done this in a month. They've revamped their entire run game in a month. Like they got embarrassed. I believe they had under 100 yards rushing in the Michigan game where I think it was less 70 than 80 yards. It was like 70. Yeah. So they couldn't run the ball at all. And then Chip Kelly says, all right, well, this is because Chip Kelly, obviously, if you know who Chip Kelly is, it's like zone run. That's what they want to do. That's what he's done. He's made his bread and butter off of it. And he's like, you know what? Let's do something else. In the span of a month, they're completely unstoppable. So that's why that's why they went and got him to be their
throw in the fact that they've had injuries across that offensive line. I mean, it's been a reworked offensive line too. even in the last month.
Yeah.
So it's like you said, that's why they went out and got him.
Jaquavian says he likes Texas. Look, Texas could. This is what we're going to sit here and say. I want to paint the other picture before we kind of round this out. Texas, to me, you mentioned they've got the talent, right? They've got the ability to go win this football game.
Mm-hmm.
What have I said all season? We're going to have to see something we really haven't seen. And it's Quinn Ewers kind of on an extended, locked in the zone mentality, if that makes sense. We've seen spurts of it, and that's a reason he's a good
great for 4 quarters.
Yeah, I mean, when has he played a full 60 minutes against a good team? I mean, Arizona. I'd have to go back and look at what he did
game because he got benched the first time they played Georgia.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at the Arizona State game, just like how he did. The Clemson game, I mean, that feels like it was 2 months ago at this point. So I don't know. I mean, just can Texas do it? I do think they can. I really like what Ohio State brings to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy says Chip Kelly's looking good, thinking schools with coaching the hot seats will come for him. We'll answer. What you think Chip Kelly can get another head coaching job? I don't know if he wants to.
That's what I was going to say. Opinion. I definitely think he can. I think schools are gonna work hard to try to get him to be a head coach again. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like if you're a head coach and you leave your job to go be a coordinator, that maybe you just don't want to be a head coach anymore. And you know, a lot of that was having to do with UCLA having their own problems with their NIL fund and getting that going and not being aligned. But I mean, as long as Chip Kelly continues to have the tools and the players that he's got at Ohio State, I don't see any reason why he'd want to go be a head coach. He would have to go play against this team.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, nobody's ever questioned the chops, Chip Kelly's head coaching chops. I mean,
yeah,
the dude's been an elite head coach since he became the head coach at Oregon.
I do recall a podcast interview where LaShawn McCoy pretty much says that in the NFL they couldn't stand him. The Eagles, some of the players couldn't stand him, but that's different.
I mean, yeah, it's not because he can't coach. It's because of the way he ran. And you know, the Eagles, I don't know what they were thinking when they hired him because they let him be the GM too. And I think that was the big
Wasn't
mistake.
that the Michael Vick year when they brought him in and had Vick and had the dream team they called it.
Brought in Tim Tebow and Vince Young too to be the backup to Michael Vick.
Wow.
He got a bunch of college all-stars that were kind of bust in the NFL.
Yeah, that's true.
He brought in Kiko Alonso to play linebacker, and that was a disaster. It just
brutal.
It just didn't work out. And, you know, I mean, we saw, I think, same thing with the Texans and Bill O'Brien. Head coaches already have a big ego, and you let them be the general manager too. It just amplifies it.
And they, trade your number one receiver, who might have been one of the best top 5 receivers in the league at the time. That's what that is. No, in all seriousness, though, I do think Chip Kelly is a good OC. And look, I mean, you're an OC at one of the elite programs in college football. So it'll be interesting, Nancy, if he does indeed want to leave. Well, I didn't want to do this before we get out of here. Shorter show tonight because we started later and only 2 games on the docket. Bet Online already has those future bets if you're interested in it.
I did see that.
So hypothetically, our national title game that we have predicted to happen, Notre Dame, Ohio State, the Buckeyes would be an 8-point favorite against. If you get Notre Dame, Texas, Longhorns a 2-point favorite. I'll tell you this, what's going to be awesome is that no matter what title game we get, it's going to be 2 massive brands, 2 great helmets going at each other. I like that.
Here's the crazy part about these hypothetical lines. In both games, Ohio State against either Penn State or Notre Dame's an 8-point favorite. They're an 8.5 against Penn State. And Texas is a 2.5-point favorite against Penn State. So, I mean, the lines are the same. So, obviously, the bookmakers think Texas or Ohio State is going to win the national title, which probably a good bet. I mean, kind of looking ahead, if Texas does knock off Ohio State, I like their matchup against Penn State better, actually, than against Notre Dame, just because Notre Dame is so efficient. I mean, we talked about that earlier. When you have a team as efficient as that, I mean, it's hard to beat teams that don't beat themselves, and that's what Notre Dame is.
I like what you said there. They don't make a lot of mistakes, and they also force a lot of mistakes. And so when you have that combination, it's really hard to be beat. But I like Notre Dame, Ohio State, and I think it'd be a lot of fun. But the game's on Thursday and Friday night, and we'll obviously have more of an idea. Maybe we go live late Friday night. We'll see after the game and see what happens. And that rapid reaction. The national title game's on January the 20th, so we got to wait literally almost 2 weeks
10 days.
for 10 days for the national title in Atlanta. Will, are you going to be there? Are you going to be?
I don't know yet.
I don't know yet. TBD on January 20th out there in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. And I'll say this, not because we obviously have some ties to the stadium, not a better venue to honestly host the national title game in terms of just I was watching, by the way, the people, and I'm like, this is just awesome. Like, it's such a great venue.
I think the national title game should be at a permanent location, and if it's not at the Rose Bowl, it should be in Atlanta.
All right. Well, I was going to end the show, but I'm about to type in a banner here.
Are we going to?
I want to discuss this. This was kind of a topic of discussion. Okay.
Well, it was making the rounds on Twitter last week.
So,
or X, the everything app.
The permanent title game location. I will say this, I'm all for it. Like, I think it'd be cool to have like a place where you go play that, because we really don't have that in sports, right? Like, we don't have like, here's a hallowed place, but in college football, you have hallowed stadiums, or hallowed stadium, however I'm supposed to say that. I don't know, dude.
Well, you say that, but we're really down to one, and it's the Rose Bowl, because you think about it. The Fiesta Bowl, Glendale, it's an NFL stadium, or another one. Well, before I get to that, the Orange Bowl is not the Orange Bowl. It's Miami's Hard Rock Stadium.
Yeah.
So it's either you play it at the Rose Bowl, or you play it, which, the College Football Hall of Fame is in Atlanta. So Atlanta's kind of become the home of college football.
Yeah.
Yeah. So either one of those places. If it's not one of those two, I really love the Cotton Bowl. I think the Cotton Bowl is a severely underutilized location. I mean, they don't even play the Cotton Bowl in the Cotton Bowl anymore. They play it in Cowboy Stadium.
Yeah, the only game that's played there is the Texas-Oklahoma game.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think more games should be played there.
Gavin says play them all on campus in the championship at the Rose Bowl. I will say this.
I have a problem with that.
I'd love that. The problem is the money in the bowl and the big, we call them the New Year's Six or the BCS bowls. They wouldn't love that. But if I was college football czar, okay, because I don't want to get trademarked for saying the other word. If I was the college football czar, I'm putting the Rose Bowl as the national title, and then let's rotate out the semifinals, there, and let's roll with it. Like, let's have fun. And you know what? Like, I think this needs to happen too, Will. And this is not a title game location. Make the Pop-Tarts Bowl in the round. If you're taking the Rose Bowl out, you got to have a bowl game step up to make the rounds in the quarterfinals, semifinals. The Pop-Tart Bowl, because it's amazing. That or the Cheez-It Bowl. Orlando's doing it right down there. We'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But so okay, you're good. So we're on the same page. Like, Rose Bowl national title every year would just be awesome. It
would be awesome. I mean, everybody watches the Rose Bowl. I mean,
dude, yes.
It's truly an event.
They have the Rose Bowl parade. It's much more than just football.
Yeah.
Like, you have the New Year's Day parade that's Rose Bowl. Like,
hey, and we can end the season on January 1st, which I think is a much cleaner day to end the college football season anyway.
Maybe we could start the portal on the 2nd and stop all this madness that we have going on in December.
Yeah.
So
that would be so much better.
That'd be so much better. A lot for the psyche of a lot of support staffers across the country. But hey, we appreciate you watching. Maybe we'll be live on Friday night. We'll let you know. The best way for you to stay in tune is 1, join the Discord, follow us on social media, and then 3, hit that little subscribe button and the notifications bell there down below too. And then obviously we got our friends over there, Bet Online. You can put in Believe 50 for them to match that initial deposit over there. Do it responsibly. If you have a problem, call Will. He'll talk you through it. And we will I hate when Google does this. Can you hear Google talking to me right now?
No, I can't.
See, that's the power of this expensive microphone. You can't hear, but you can hear my kids screaming some reason, somehow. Anyways, we appreciate you watching. Thanks so much for tuning in. Nancy says, bucket list for me, Rose Bowl parade and game. Nancy, Will and I will hop in the car with you. We'll head over there with you because it is phenomenal. It's awesome.
Hey, some more super chats, and we might can be there next year.
You know what? A couple more. Maybe we're there. We don't know. We'll see. Catch you next time here on the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.